like he makes lo-fi records anymore. You know, I mean, those records sound really good. They're like, you know, they may make them remotely or whatever right now, but
And yet, although, you know, if he is truly working out of like his home, he's doing a pretty good job of it.
yeah, pretty amazing.
I had to make sure that last bit went over. I love that. But thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming in. I mean, you know,
anytime.
We haven't had that many people in. We just finally got cleared. Like I was hooking up microphones,
right?
You know, before you got here. And it's just so exciting that we can actually have, you know, people back in the studio.
I know, it's kind of crazy, man, because like, you know, I go from not doing a whole hell of a lot and, you know, just interviewing local people and a few people here and there to like, now it's like back to normal, and now I'm just fighting with publicists and trying to set up interviews and getting shut down left and right, you know. James Taylor, Jackson Brown, no. Trace Atkins, no. Chris Dowertree or whatever, no. Like, dude, I don't even want to talk to you, but you really don't need the press?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'm always baffled by that. Like, why would you turn it down?
But, you know, it's so many things, or they're just like getting to me way too late.
I can get that.
And it's been a weird time, so... You know, with the paper though, we're dedicated to try to cover as much stuff as we can, even though we still got limited space. But, you know, realistically, the more we drive that helps build more revenue for ads, and it like feeds itself.
Oh yeah.
Because the paper's still pretty small. You know, we need the advertising is still not picked up from what it was pre-pandemic. So.
Oh, you're not the first person connected to print, or you know, of course, Dayton Daily News is not just print anymore.
Right.
But just people working in news or newspapers, broadly speaking, just saying how tough it is and how ad revenue took such a tumble during the pandemic. I'm like, so what'd you lose, like 10%? And people are like, no, we lost more than half.
Yeah,
or,
easily.
Like, oh God, how are you still operating?
Right.
I mean, so you know, more power, you know, to folks who are able to, you know, make that work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just really amazed and thrilled that I still have a job, you know, after that, because I mean,
well, I guess that there were a lot of deep cuts, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, but I'm freelance, you know, I'm a gig worker, so I get paid by the piece, so they're not having to pay insurance or any of that stuff on me, and it's like, but so I'm glad to be back to normal. You know, some people maybe they don't even see the value in doing interviews with the print media. You know, I don't know. But then, like, I interviewed Alice Cooper the other day. He's not in town until September. He's a pro, though.
But I've heard a couple friends of mine who've talked to him said he's a great interviewer.
I've interviewed him a few
really
times. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't really ask him any questions except just following up on stuff he said. You know, it's like I was prepared because I'd listened to his new record and done all that.
How is it?
Somebody good.
Someone told me
Detroit stories.
Yeah, someone told me it's really neat.
It's got some cool stuff, you know. Wayne Kramer's on it, and
see, to me,
that's Velvet
cool.
Underground. It opens up with "Rock and Roll" by the Velvet Underground. That's the first song. But it's cool, you know. It's different. I mean, I like Alice Cooper, and he still works with Bob Ezrin, which is pretty amazing.
Jeez.
But Ezra was like 22 when they started working together,
Well,
you know. So
that's pretty much almost from the beginning for Alice.
For both of them, you know, it's like.
Well, and of course, Ezra. He also did some of my favorite Kiss records.
Oh, absolutely. He did. Not the Elder, though.
No. Well, see, at that point, I'm like, what's happening? You know. Now, granted, there were a couple of interesting songs on Songs from the Elder, but most of them, you're like, no, this isn't Kiss.
Did you see that Kisstory that was on recently, that 2 episode?
I did.
That was good.
I actually learned a few things.
I did too.
I thought I knew all that you could know. I was Kiss Army. I got a patch.
Oh shit, I was that hardcore, but I love that stuff for sure.
Smug Brothers here on your Tuesday afternoon alternative. One of my favorite songs, just a fantastic tune, My Little Crowd Pleaser, from a record that should have been a huge success, Disco Maroon. I absolutely believe that, and I will fight people over that, you know, until the world ends or something, you know, zombie apocalypse or something like that. But I say that not just because the man, the myth, the legend, Don Thrasher is here in the studio. we won't list his biography because that would take all the time we have, but more importantly, that's his drumming that you just heard. And he has so graciously agreed to come back into the studio here. Don Thrasher, thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, Art, happy to be here, man. We always appreciate your support. Anytime you make the call, I will be here. Sometimes even maybe if you don't make the call, I'll show up, so you never know.
You know, there are 3 microphones. We can always work it out.
Now that we can do that and safely interact with each other again, why not just have the drop-in, the unexpected drop-in on the mic?
And I'm okay with that because sometimes that's pure magic, right?
Right. Maybe we'll have to bring that back, along with a lot of other traditions that we've forgotten about over the last year or so.
Oh, right. It's sort of like, okay, I think many of us, that there are things I just want to say, you know, first of all, those of you who are driving again, pedestrians should always win. But no, in all seriousness, I'm looking forward to the fall where I get to teach in front of students with a full class and not be clad in a hazmat suit. And, you know, I don't have the difficult job that some people have, but trying to teach through a mask and read how students were feeling with masks on, that was hard. And then Zoom, we quickly learned the limitations of that medium.
Sure, yeah, me too. And I did a lot of Zoom interviews and for the first time, and it's good. It has its upsides and it has its downsides. But at least it was good to be able to do that and still do in-person interviews. I did a couple of them with people outside last year, socially distanced with masks on, but only a couple. And, you know, most of the stuff was Zoom or phone calls or email interviews and that kind of thing. Like, I think when I saw you and Tracy maybe from a distance at Yellow Cab a couple times.
I remember
over
that.
the summer, and we waved, and I know we talked on the phone and we emailed or messaged a few times through all this, but it's been a while since we just sat down and conversed
I
like
know.
this. So it's pretty amazing. I'm pushing for in-person interviews when possible. You know, it's been great to get out and mix it up with people again.
Oh, I totally get that, because I think as we were talking about being just in the same room or just having the conversation is so different when you're together. Or, even though Zoom does have certain advantages, it also has certain limitations, as you were saying. But you know, let's not talk about that stuff.
Yeah,
let's
get
talk
past
about
that.
the music.
Woo!
So even though there were lots of challenges, Smug Brothers was still pretty active. You guys recorded quite a bit.
We did. We were uniquely set up, I guess, for the pandemic. We didn't know it was coming, obviously, but you know, we put out like I guess 3 records in 2018. And then we had been working on various things, or was that 2019? Gosh, it's hard to remember now. 19, that was 2019 when we put out those records. But then at the end of the year, Kyle and I got together and recorded like a bunch of new stuff he'd written. And it was a good batch of stuff. And it just turned out that there were like all these songs that were like similar, like a certain number of 3-minute songs, a couple of 2-minute songs, a couple of 1-minute songs. And like it was some kind of like Beautiful Mind thing where it just kind of unfolded in front of me, and I could just see that there were like 3 really good like EPs, like 4-song EPs that would sequence perfectly for vinyl, even though we released them digitally initially. That's how I saw them, and I think they're really good records. So in the fall, late summer, we did the 3 EPs that we put out, 1 a month, which maybe wasn't the best way to do it, but it was cool to have a project to work on. You know, all my stuff was done before the pandemic, other than sequencing and cheerleading and going, yeah, that sounds good. But you know, those guys did, like Kyle Sowash on bass and Scott Tribble, who plays guitar and keyboards and such. He did his stuff remotely. Kyle does all the final mixing, and so he brought the whole thing home. So they did all the heavy lifting, you know, those guys. So they get all the credit for making that happen. I'm just the one that suggested it, and that's kind of my job a lot of times, is just the enabler. I'm just like, we can do this, because Kyle has plenty of songs, so I'm always like pushing to get together and record. We got together Wednesday and recorded 4 new songs for whatever's next, and you know, so we're always trying to work ahead, which is just in the nature. I mean, he has easily 100 songs demoed that we haven't even gotten to, and that's probably undercounting it. So we're at no shortage, and he still writes songs too. Not all the time, just when he's in the mood, because he doesn't have to, right? We got him. So we did that, and then once we did that, we're like, well, you know, that worked pretty good. Maybe we should see what else we have in the mix, and you guys finish it up. I don't have to again. I don't. So again, kind of spearheaded that. And I'm like, here's like some good ideas, and we like this would be good. They started working on it, and then we trimmed that down, and the sequence kind of came together, and all of a sudden we had this thing called Application of the Twig, which will be out in September.
It's remarkable. I mean, because you've got Every Surface Under Heaven, right? What was that, October of 2020? And then Room of the Year. It's just really, I think it's inspiring. It's a positive message that even given the circumstances, you can still be creative. You can still create art and get the music out there.
Right, right, yeah, and for me, it was great to have something like that to look forward to, have the new mixes come in, have the art ideas flowing back and forth, and trying to figure all that stuff out, because I wasn't as busy work-wise last year, and honestly, I mean, I dealt with my fair share of depression and just trying to figure out what's going on, and wasn't always as creative. I didn't have trouble with work, but anything like super creative musically was tough at times for me, so it was always great to have these guys kicking butt and me being able to just sit back and go, yeah, this sounds great. More, please. So I'm already pushing them to like, man, we got all this other stuff kind of floating around. If you guys want to, you know, do some overdubbing at home sometime, like let's, you know, think about 2022. So that's kind of my role. So.
Well, and that's important, right? Sometimes a band, a group, any kind of activity, you need the cheerleader. And I don't mean that in any dismissive way, right? You need someone who just kind of gets the troops together. Let's keep moving forward.
Right, yeah, no, I love Kyle's songwriting. I love working with him. We've been doing this since 2008 together. It's the longest I've ever been in a single band with anybody in one stretch of time. And I mean, I don't see any reason to stop. I mean, we work great together. We have a great time. What we do is what I love to do. You know, I mean, I think, you know, completely happy doing all this stuff. I wish we could get a few more people to pay attention, but you know, we're just going to keep kicking it out, and you know, hopefully people catch up or not, you know, but we're going to keep making music regardless. So.
Well, and if you just go to the Bandcamp page, right? So if you search for Smug Brothers on Bandcamp, you're going to see that they have an extensive array of records that are up there. But what's also interesting is like what you're doing with Application of the Twig, where you're creating these bundles. And well, here, get the album, but there's also a t-shirt, or there's some cool merchandise that you can also package with that. I think that's rather clever.
Well, I mean, we're not the first ones to do that. I think that's just kind of the world we're living in now, where you need to offer people, you know, some bonuses and different things. You know, we're doing the album on CD, but we're doing like limited edition vinyl that's the lathe cut, so it's limited edition, hand numbered, one-time deal. You know, once that's done, you know, it won't be. It could be repressed maybe in some other form at some time, but I don't know. You know, but right now this is it, and so that's open right now to our Bandcamp page, and people can pre-order that now. And like you said, you can get the bundle with the T-shirt and different things, which that was designed by Mr. Tim Krug of Oak Condor, who's helped us with art things off and on since the beginning. He did the Gas Daddy Go logo for us, and so he's always been helpful in a lot of different ways. And he actually plays synthesizer on one of the songs on this album. Yes.
Well,
so.
I'm a big Tim fan.
Heck yeah.
That last O Condor record.
Oh, it's fantastic. I wish it hadn't been so long between records, but it's so great. It makes it worth the wait, because man, it's the best thing they've ever done for sure.
So my joke for that is I saw Tim right before they got the vinyl, and we were talking, you know, through our masks and everything back then. But he's like, oh, we should have it by now. It should have come back to us from those folks who were putting the packaging together and the vinyl together. And then he texts me like the next day, it's here, your magic. And I'm like, I don't think I really had anything to do with that. But if you want to believe I'm your good luck charm, then you know, I will come talk to you all the time, Tim.
Absolutely, that's funny.
Well, speaking of people paying attention, you know, I'm a huge fan of the song Hang Up.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a perfect indie pop song, or heck man, it's a perfect rock song.
All right.
Right? As far as I'm concerned, and if you want to argue with me about this, I'm afraid those are fighting words. But I'm curious what your sense of that song is. because I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's definitely a good one. I mean, we jokingly call it the hit. It's definitely one that people like. I mean,
it's full of hooks.
It's full of hooks, and, we took inspiration in very many places. But I love playing that song live. I mean, I still remember vividly recording that when we did that up with Micah Carley at Popside for the Disco Maroon record you were talking about earlier. I mean, I think there's really something special about that song. I mean, people do seem to react to it. It's got a certain amount of hookiness to it, a little pop-tastic sensibility to it, I guess. So.
I like your words better than mine. Well, let's hear it, and then we'll come back and chat a little bit, and then we'll hear the new song from the forthcoming record, Application of the Twig. But before that, I've got to play you one of my many, many favorite Smug Brothers songs. In a more just universe, in a fair space, this song would have been a huge hit. This would have been a #1 hit. It's called Hang Up by Smug Brothers from the terrific album Disco Maroon.
Yeah, if we could just get somebody to license.
I mean, it's a perfect song.
If we could just get somebody to license it, put it in a TV show
or
a movie.
Exactly. No, I remember hearing it. And I'm like, why is this not in a movie?
If we could, we would. I don't know. I guess we should be pushing that stuff more.
Well, I mean, in some ways, it's hard to break into that, right? I mean, it's not so much about having a good song or not. It's about the right people hearing it.
It is. Yeah, one of the guys from, why did I just go blank? Frontier Folk, Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Does music placement. Yeah. And he reached out to me. One of the guys from Hillbilly Elegy was looking for some music. There's a scene in the movie where they go from Middletown to Dayton, and I guess I didn't see the movie, but I guess there's in a record store.
Yeah.
And they were looking for something from the 90s from Dayton, so I sent them like Captain of 2000s.
Captain of
Industry,
sure.
Sheezes,
yeah.
and a couple things, and they seemed to like them, but they didn't take any of them. So a Shrug song, I sent them a Shrug song.
Oh, see, now that would have been great.
Yeah, it was all like three things like these would be like amazing if you heard them in a movie or in a radio, in a record store. They'd be like, yeah, this is great stuff. So, but didn't happen. But it was just cool to be, so.
Well, so I've got to say the new song is very jangly.
Yeah.
It's almost got a country flavor
to it. Almost Tom Petty vibe.
Yeah. It's like kind of that kind of Midwest rock and roll, Tom Petty, Americana kind of vibe to it.
And we've done that stuff. Like Solar Party going way back is kind of like that, and Travis from Frontier Folk, Nebraska plays pedal steel on one of the songs on Thirsty Moon.
Yeah. Oh, right. I remember we talked about that.
And there's a little country vibe on it, a little bit of Disco Maroon at times.
Yes.
But that rootsy thing is very, very, few and far between. But we pushed it. I mean, it's just the song's so good. I'm like, this got to be the first single.
Oh, yeah. Smug Brothers here on your Tuesday afternoon alternative. If you're just now joining us, I'm here with Don Thrasher, the man, the myth, the legend, the drummer, the songwriter, the poet. I'm going to nominate him for a Peace Prize.
Please do.
but that was older. That Disco Maroon was a few years ago.
Yes,
Application of the Twig is the new record. Comes out here in a couple months. I've been listening to I'm going to make sure I say this right. Seem Like You to Me.
Yes.
It's very jangly.
It is, yeah, it is. It's got kind of, I think, a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers kind of vibe to it. So it's a little bit different for us, sure. I mean, we do acoustic stuff, like on all our records, especially the full lengths. And there's a little bit of the rootsy stuff that crops up every once in a while. Solar Party's an older song that has a little bit of that vibe. Travis from Frontier Folk, Nebraska plays pedal steel or lap steel on a song on the last album under, what's that called? Under a Thirsty Moon, is that it? That sounds right. And so there's been things here and there, but this record's a little bit different because it's kind of come together through what we had left, little odds and ends, I guess you could say, here and there. I think it's a really solid record, but it's definitely not the record we would have made if it hadn't have been the pandemic and we could have gotten together to maybe record a few more, like, pop rock type numbers or whatever. There's maybe a few more acoustic ones than before, a few more somber ones maybe, but it's a really solid record. But anyway, we thought since it's a different album, let's lean into that, and this single is definitely different. I don't play drums on it at all, so it's like, but still I pushed it because I just think it's a really great song, and I think people dig it, and maybe some people that didn't care about us before, maybe it'll perk up their ears and have them give us a second chance. I don't know.
Well, let's play it. You described it so well. Let's play it, and then we'll come back and talk about it. I think it's a great song. From Application of the Twig, this is Smug Brothers with Seemed Like You to Me. Because what it initially reminded me of was some of what Kyle did with Jesse, that Rex Apple stuff. It felt a little bit like that, but then in a different direction. Like that was a starting point. So who's doing the percussion here then?
Kyle does.
Oh,
He
that's
does all
Kyle.
that percussion.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
Yeah, that's why I mean he puts in a lot of work, and we wouldn't have any of this done if he wasn't so driven.
Oh, Joe Andrell says, "Love you, Don."
Love you too, baby.
I've even got a few listeners have a couple questions for you. I don't know, is it cool, like, what she sounded very young, but she called in last week because I said you were going to be on the show this week, and she's like, well, is it okay to ask Don if he still listens to GBV?
Oh, absolutely, I do. Yeah,
I'm like,
of course.
well, I'm pretty sure he does, but I think it's okay to ask him that.
We can talk about that. But yeah, that's fun. Yeah, definitely.
And she sounded like she was, like nervous asking me. It's like, well, I personally don't have a stake in that race. That's really up to Dawn. And some people had some interesting questions that we probably covered in previous interviews, but I thought I should at least ask people.
Yeah. I mean, if they ask, I mean, you don't have to dwell on anything.
Yeah, right. I think we should focus on the new stuff rather than older stuff whenever possible. Oh, gee, looks like it's gonna rain again. Shocker.
It's just so crazy.
Isn't it? I feel like I should be building an ark or something. Brand new music from Smug Brothers. It seemed like you to me here on your Tuesday afternoon alternative. So you hear the jangle, which seems to be a bit of a departure for Smug Brothers.
Well, I mean, we jangle. That's in our thing. That 80s jangle thing is definitely in there. I mean, Ruby Skate has that vibe to it, and I think even Venus at Night. So it's in there. I think there's a couple on Woodpecker Paradise that jangle. So we jangle. It's in there. But yeah, that's definitely in that sweet spot, though, I think. It's pure acoustic with a little bit of sweet electric guitar back there. Yeah.
Well, it does remind me of like A Thing for English,
Mm-hmm.
which has a little bit of jangle into
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah.
so I do hear what you say, but I also think, like you were saying a moment ago, that predominance, maybe that's the wrong word, the kind of focus on the acoustic is kind of different. You guys always have, on a full length, you do have a few acoustic tunes or something like that.
We do.
I think of, what was it, Observatory Lanterns or things like that. But it also seems like it's a different vibe to me than some of the other acoustic stuff. Does it feel that way to you, or do you think that, no, Art, you're way off base?
No, well, it is, but it's been a transitional thing, and part of that is up through Disco Maroon, everything we did, we started on the 4-track, but we finished primarily everything with Daryl Robbins up to a point, and then the last couple things we did with Micah Carley. Then after that, Kyle Melton took over like all the final mixing and and production and all that stuff. So we've been able to be a little bit more productive because we can work on our own schedule, but also he's able to spend more time just doing little overdubs and thinking about other things that he wouldn't necessarily do just because maybe we couldn't afford to do it with Micah, or he didn't want to bother Daryl with it because it was time to go or something. You know what I mean? There's just a little more
Yeah.
leisure to it. So you really can think about it, marinate it more, and do some different tasteful things, I think, sonically. So I think there's just a little bit more going on maybe with the acoustic stuff now. A little more produced, a little more arranged. And I think that's the reason. Does that make sense?
Oh no, that makes brilliant sense. I think you've described it really well. Well, I'm also curious. Now this is probably a song that you've lived with for a long time already. Right by the time we hear it, you've been living with it for quite some time. So when somebody hears it for the first time, what are you hoping they hear? What are you hoping they get?
I don't know. I think there's a sense of exuberance in that song, and I hope it makes them happy. I hope I say jokingly, but I think that it's the feel-good hit of the summer. I mean, there's no way that you can't enjoy that song. And if you've seen Brandon Barry's video to accompany it, I mean, I think there's no reason you can't just smile and be happy for the few 2.5 minutes or however long that song is. I mean, I think that's the best I could hope for.
Well, and there is nothing wrong with that, right? You don't always have to create songs, and I don't think this is true of Smugs, but you don't always have to create a song that's about despair.
Right, absolutely, absolutely.
You can tell people there are hopeful things about life too.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, we're very fortunate today. We have Don Thrasher of Smug Brothers here in the studio. Of course, Don's been in Swearing at Motorists. He was in Guided by Voices, and I always feel like I can keep going, but I have to stop. Mrs. Dr. J is always like, once you've done 2, then you need to stop.
Right. You can't listen well. I understand. Yeah.
But you know, a long and storied career in music is at least the shorthand that I could say.
Right.
We got a few listeners who had some questions for you.
Okay.
And there was one we were talking about off air, and a listener who was very, very sweet. She sounded incredibly young. Just wanted to know do you still listen and enjoy like GBV, Guided by Voices?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a fan. I have never not been a fan. I mean, I was a hardcore fan before I ever had anything to do with playing with the band, up to the point that even then it was an annoyance to my wife. There was only a handful of us at the time. Even Bob's friends didn't get it and didn't care. His family didn't care. His wife, his parents, only his brother Jimmy really got it, and a handful of us. I mean, at least I was an early adopter when it came to that. I can say that, like, I got it far long before anybody else did around here. But anyway, I think the records are fabulous. I listen to all the new stuff when it comes out, and when I saw the current lineup a couple years ago in Columbus, it was absolutely the best Guided by Voices show I'd ever seen. I mean, just solid from top to bottom,
Yeah, the
everybody sings. There's just tight as can be, There was some fun and some drinking on stage and joking around, but it was just rock from top to bottom, I mean, it was no messing around. And he still brings it. So yeah, absolutely, I'm a fan, and I still appreciate and just marvel at the fact that how he can knock out so much music. The Cub Scout Bowling Pins is really good. I like that, the EP and the new record. So yeah, I mean, I stay up on all that stuff, not just because I have to for the newspaper, but because, I've been a fan since the 80s, baby, it's like.
Sandbox for me. So I think you and I are of a similar age set.
Exactly.
Well, I know a couple other listeners were really interested. What specific records do you draw inspiration from today, right? That you might listen to like another drummer, or you might hear a song that another band is making and go, oh, well, that's really interesting.
I mean, it could be anything. I mean, I listen to so much music, it would be hard to say. I mean, I don't know. I listen to a lot of like 60s R&B, soul. Like, I like to try to steal a bunch of stuff from that as far as drum fills and things go, feel and that kind of thing. But as far as like contemporary drummers, I don't really even think about that. I mean, I'm not a modern style drummer at all, and I don't even profess to be. But you know, I mean, I hear stuff like Huey Jr. If you heard that latest record, like
Oh,
I
that was
find that
phenomenal.
instantly inspiring in so many ways. Like those guys are really good. Like I hear Parquet Courts and I hear Pavement, but there's all kind of other things. But it's their own thing, and you know they've got those two records that are fantastic as far as I'm concerned. And like so, there's always stuff out there. But like the band Avalanches, like that was a group. Do you know them? I totally slept on them until the pandemic. And oh my God, I mean that's 100% down my alley. That first record of theirs, like how did I not know this? But so that's something over the last year that I've listened to a lot. And from doing the Crossfade Rivals thing, you know, I have this kind of a weird electronic side to me. So that stuff has been revelatory as well and inspiring. So. Yeah, I mean, so much of last year was listening to a bunch of old Dayton stuff from the 60s and beyond, and that was inspiring too, just to know that what we're doing now is not an anomaly. There's so much great music going on, but it's just like, this is a vortex for that thing, and it always has been, and it's not gonna stop.
Well, and if people don't know that, that's a project that you've really dedicated a lot of time and energy to, capturing, you know, preserving that music, and here comes the rain, everybody.
Yeah.
Right, but preserving, you know, that history. So you know, I know you and I have talked about this before. I mean, that some of these stories are really compelling, right? Like Jay's story.
Right, Big J Bush. I mean, that was tragic, but I mean, just such a great band and such a just an amazing story. And then to end so tragically by being shot on stage while you're performing because he thought you were somebody else. You know, that's wow. So tragic, just tragic. But yeah, I did do deep dives through all that stuff. There's a site called Buckeye Beat, which is like an exhaustive collection of music from Cleveland, Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, and beyond. And that was kind of my starting point, and I just scoured that thing and then went to YouTube and Discogs, and it was like, you know, anywhere I could find that stuff. But those were like my main three sources, you know, and then I just went and found whatever I could, searched old newspaper archives and all that kind of stuff to find stories and music. And I found a lot of Dayton 45s I never knew existed from the 60s, and a lot of great stuff that, you know, I made that compilation with a bunch of stuff from the 60s, R&B and garage rock, but there's a whole second volume that's basically done that's just as good as the first one. It's just mind-boggling, and I could probably do a third. But yeah, I mean, I went down the rabbit hole, like all the bluegrass stuff, and from the Dayton, the Jalen record stuff that was done right here on Brown Street, where the label was, just right around the corner from where we are. So yeah, just the history is amazing, and it never ceases to amaze me. And but we're living in that history now. Just like the great stuff that has come out of Dayton in the last couple years is just staggering. It just keeps rolling, and the quality didn't dip last year, and that was when great bands like Boxcar Suite and Neo-American Pioneers held on to their records for this year because they were basically done. But other people didn't wait, others did. You know, Age Nowhere has one coming out, and they, you know, were basically done too. So it's just been an embarrassment of riches, you know. There's just so much great stuff. That Alex Sneed record that came out earlier this year, fantastic. The new Scary Hotel record, I just love so much. I played the heck out of that. Joey Beach's EP. The Brother Hill record is so great. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's fantastic record. What he's doing is just beyond, I think. It's like there's a little Radiohead in there, and this like world music stuff and this folky Appalachian stuff. It's like a crazy mix that works just so well. He's like a powerful figure too, singer.
And there's a real strong spirituality to what Brother Hill does, right?
Yeah.
Not in a religious sense, but kind of a spiritual connection through music that he's able to channel. It's you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I've seen him a couple times, and he was so kind to share some of his music with us, which we played on the show, and I'm like, how are you, making music like this, and you're not like a Zen master somewhere, you're not like 100 years old.
Right. That's the thing, is how young he is. I know.
How are you doing it?
That's the mind-blowing thing, because he does seem to have the wisdom of a much older man in
Yes.
his songs and in his presentation of the songs. So it's pretty powerful. But then you think about it, like Pete Townsend was 18 and he was writing songs that
Fair point.
shook the
Fair
world.
point.
You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess age doesn't really mean anything when it comes to that. But yeah, it just keeps rolling, man. There's just so much good stuff coming out. I mean, I know I'm forgetting all kind of stuff. The Nautical Theme, they have the 3-song EP that's really good.
Oh, it is good.
And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much.
That could be the entire day right there where we're talking about all
the stuff.
So I believe Smug Brothers has a show coming up in the future, don't you? Because that's a question that someone asked. Given the limitations with the pandemic and everything, you obviously couldn't play out. Are there any plans to play out?
We do, but we haven't announced anything yet because we're trying to firm up a couple things. But hopefully, yes, we'll be playing in a couple months. We'll have some shows in Ohio. So, yeah, because we had like 3 shows scheduled for late March of 2020,
Right.
which would have been like, we played 3 shows in 2019 and 2018. So right away we would have like tied our record for the last couple of years. But then as it is, we didn't play any. So our last show is November 2019. So hopefully this fall, come October or so, we'll be playing again. So yeah, I mean, we've only had 2 practices. This Saturday was our second practice back. We had our first in June. We actually got together a couple weeks before that to take photos, because we had to do photos so we could meet the release of the September album date. Like, okay. That's how that stuff works. You have to get all the photos and everything together so you can send it out. So even before we started rehearsing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So there are plans to play
Yeah,
out.
we will be. We're working
Please
now.
let us know
Oh, yes, for
as
sure.
that gets firmed up. We'd love to let people know that.
Oh, yeah.
And I just think it's exciting to get back to experiencing live music again.
Absolutely, absolutely. You might have seen that photo of me at Dayton.com from the Levitt where I was cheering to the heavens. That was my first like real live show, other than going to a few socially distanced things at Yellow Cab. And that was the Shamar Allen show at Levitt, the season opener.
Oh, phenomenal.
Yeah, it was a great show, and I mean, I just had the absolutely best time. It was incredible. And it just felt good to get out dance for 90 minutes, my wife and I, Chris, and we were sore for days, but we also smiled for days too. It was it was great. And we've been to the Levitt a handful of times since then, and it's always fun. So we're lucky to have a place like that that brings not only great talent from out of the area, but also promotes local talent. And it's all free, and it's right downtown. And great sound, great staff, I couldn't ask for a better time.
We should talk to Lisa and the folks over there. Smug Brothers should get on a bill.
Oh, that'd be great. I mean, we certainly wouldn't say no to that. I mean, that'd be a feather in anybody's cap to play at such a great place. So yeah, maybe 2022 or 2023 they'll find time to get us up there. That would be pretty cool.
That would be great. I did see that picture. I just love the joy on your face.
That was
and
real.
Chris's face.
That was real, baby. Like, yeah, that was cutting loose for sure.
Oh, you and Chris just look so happy.
We were. It's like I've taken this since we've been vaccinated, double vaccinated, and the world's opening up. This is my roaring 20s, baby, and I'm going to make the best of it. I'm seeing friends, I'm seeing live music, I'm eating out, I'm driving the economy where I can, and I'm just trying to be safe and not a knucklehead.
Right.
But I'm having fun. My kid's basically living with his girlfriend, so it's like a second honeymoon in my house. So it's I'm
So you're a
living
happy guy.
I'm living large, baby. Yeah. This is my year.
I love it. The year of Don Thrasher.
That's right.
Yeah. And why the heck not? If you're just joining us, it is my pleasure to have in the studio Dayton music legend, Don Thrasher. We're talking about the new Smug Brothers. They've got great stuff on the horizon. Application of the Twig comes out. It's not till September 10th, but you can pre-order on their Bandcamp page. And in case it's unclear, you get your money's worth. when you buy a Smug Brothers record, first of all, you're getting great stuff, but there are all these great packages, you know, records, vinyls. They have combination with merchandise. You can buy the digital discography for a just incredibly low price. All of this is available on Bandcamp. I highly recommend that you take a look. Somebody else was asking, what musicians inspired you to become a drummer?
Oh, nobody really. It just kind of happened. In junior high, my best friend Mark Smith said, "Hey, I'm going to try out for the band and play drums. Do you want to come?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he lasted about 2 weeks, but somehow I had a facility for it, and I stuck with it. You know, I did concert band through junior high and did that a couple years in high school. I was in Alabama at the time, so I was in high school 8th and 9th grade. So I did like varsity marching band those 2 years, and so I just kind of just fell into it. I never played a full drum kit until I was a senior in high school, and that was just
Really?
on a drunken lark on Aqualung by Jethro Tull with a bunch of buddies, and I did okay. But it was only like a year later I joined the New Creatures, and as a punk rock band, you don't really have to know how to play drums, I guess. So I've been faking my way through it ever since. So, but like as far as drummers I love, I mean, it would be really like Ringo Starr and Keith Moon would be like the obvious ones, but you know, Bill Berry from REM was obviously influential. Grant Hart from Husker Du too, even though I don't think I play anything like him, but very inspiring. So, I mean, those are a couple guys, and Hal Blaine, obviously, who played on everything. I didn't know it at the time, but then you realize that, like half of your favorite songs he played on, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good.
Hal Blaine, yeah, Hal Blaine's all right. We were visiting family in Arizona, and there's this music instrument museum outside of Phoenix, and there's one of his kits that was used in like Beach Boys songs,
Right.
and, you know, gosh, the Association and Mamas and Papas and Sonny and Cher and all these other things that, you know, Blaine was like part of the Wrecking Crew. He was, of course, just a phenomenal drummer, and he was often brought in just to come in and like help fix a record or help add percussion or drumming to a record. And I have to admit, I fully expected to be pulled out of the museum because I had to touch the drums.
Oh yeah. Chris has to stop me from that all the time.
I had to. You know, yeah, I did. I really wanted to sit down, but I didn't do that. I didn't sit. But I had to just touch the drums just for a couple of seconds. Tracy comes around the corner and she's like, you know, calling you by your full name, including your middle name. You know, you know, of course, you know, the hand flies off the drums, but you still feel like you touched magic.
Right, absolutely. And that guy, he definitely did it.
Just a phenomenal drummer and just a great musician, and by all accounts a really interesting guy. But you know, clearly anyone who was in the Wrecking Crew could probably play okay.
Oh yeah. They weren't called the Wrecking Crew for nothing. Those guys were for real, and ladies. Yeah.
Well, so you guys are already working on new music. You got hundreds of songs, or at least over 100 songs. What is the stuff that you're working on now sound like at this point, or is it too soon to say?
I mean, it's too soon to say, I think. I mean, there's a few that sound kind of like standard Smug Brothers stuff, but a couple of them, I mean, we always try to push and do different stuff, and a couple of these new ones we tracked the other day have a different kind of vibe to it, so we'll see, you know, we'll see. It's hard to say until once Scott adds his guitar and keyboards, because he does a lot of crazy, tasteful things, unexpected things, but really sweet things. But so we never know what he's going to bring to us. I mean, he's been playing with us since I think Disco Maroon was Brian Baker's last record. Yeah, so he's been playing with us ever since, and he stepped in without missing a beat, and so he's playing a lot more keyboards and stuff, which Brian can do but didn't really do with us. So that's given us some new flavors, and that probably attributes to kind of some of the changes too. But you know, we miss having Brian. We miss our buddy Larry, who I know is your neighbor, and he was a great addition to the band and sadly missed. But we got a good crew now, and we're having fun, and we're able to, make music. So we're pushing forward, So we're recording again at the end of the month. Kyle and I got another session planned, and then, that's usually how we work. He and I lay stuff down, the other guys build it. But we're also working on some other stuff we're going to track as a full band that we're going to rehearse up and figure that out, which we haven't done with this crew. So that'll be fun. We always, like I said, like to mix it up and do different stuff. So.
Yeah, well, let's give Don a bit of a break. I'm going to play another favorite, or a couple favorites of mine. This is Rare and Double Clutch from Smug Brothers, from their terrific record. And if I'm correct, was this the first one that came out on vinyl? Was that Attic Harvest?
Yes.
So Attic Harvest, which was the first record that Smug Brothers released in vinyl.
Yes.
Because I just remember, Kyle was so excited. I was like, well, who wouldn't be, right? Your first record in vinyl is kind of that's kind of like a big deal.
It is. So now he's addicted. We got the 7 inches coming out of the lathe cut singles.
I think that's such a cool thing to do, because for someone like myself who needs physical copy.
And then we got that split with the Honey Radar coming out, and then this one will be on vinyl, and I don't know, I'm hoping to cook up some other things, but we'll see.
And then we should definitely play something like Freshman Zephyr from Room of the Year. I also thought it was a great song.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a fun one to play for sure.
So should probably talk about the split. I'll mention the social media stuff like Twitter and gosh, there's an Instagram account too, right? Yeah. So Twitter, Instagram, of course there's Facebook. Mention Bandcamp again to try to get people, always trying to get people to the stuff. But yeah, that's just so exciting that we can go to shows again, and that just to experience music without being like alone in my basement.
I know, man. Crazy.
But at the same time, there's no shame in like if that's where you listen to music, cool. But I just remember thinking about halfway through this past year, like, are we ever going to be able to do these things we love to do again? I mean, I got a little down, I got a little depressed.
I know, man.
Because as you know, Tracy and I would go to a lot of shows. We'd always be looking, and Dayton and between Columbus, Dayton, and Cincinnati, and everything in between. There's always cool shows to go to, and we kind of felt like a big piece of our life just been stripped away.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I also should be real thoughtful. There are people who had a lot more than just going to shows taken from them.
I know. That's why it's hard to bitch about it, because
yeah, right.
We're very fortunate. Like, that's not what I ever expected a pandemic to be like. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Oh, right. Well, I remember reading about it's a novel coronavirus, but there are other coronaviruses. So surely we'll have a handle on this, and it progressively. Right,
yeah.
The news got more and more distressing, and more and more real and impactful, and we really weren't prepared.
Yeah.
I don't know if we ever could have been completely prepared. So I don't mean to speak ill of people who aren't here to defend themselves, but I just was shocked. It's like, okay, so this is what it felt like, in the teens and 20s during the influenza pandemics. Because there are these. Tracy and I found these pictures of families in Dayton in that time period during, what was that, like 19 teens, during that first influenza pandemic. And like, they're all wearing masks. They're all really, and this is like, I don't know, a May picture. And they're dressed like it's wintertime, including having gloves on their hands. And the kicker for me is that like the dad is holding a cat and the cat has a mask on.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
I should send that picture to you.
Oh my God.
Because I was like,
our cats were not bad.
yeah. I can picture me trying to like approach the cats. Like, hey kitties, hey Oliver, I gotta put a mask on you. And he's like, yeah, no way. That's not happening. I can see him raise his paw like, I got a couple reasons why this isn't happening. I should do the ID thing here.
Yeah, these new songs sound good though in practice, because we've obviously never played them.
Yeah, oh, right, right. Well, I mean,
And that's the
it's not
crazy
been
thing.
safe to practice until recently.
Right, and that's the crazy thing. Like, we have to relearn them, so we all are like looking at our phones with our notes before we start every song. It's like,
So that's how. Well, I know Kyle keeps a lot of notes in his phone because when Kyle hears a really interesting idea or a phrase that could be a lyric or could be a title of something, he's so much better than I am in that. He's really disciplined.
he's learned, yeah. Trial and error.
And if you're just joining us, I am joined here in the studio with Don Thrasher of Smug Brothers,
Woo!
and we are talking about Excitement There, a new album that's going to come out on September 10th. You can pre-order now. There are all kinds of cool deals with merchandise, which I just think, why not do that, right? I just think it helps get cool stuff out there. You've got all kinds of interesting things, some cool designs on some t-shirts. You can even download the digital discography. I mean, come on, people, what more? There's not much more that you need in your life, but you need more Smug Brothers in your life. And all of the laugh cut stuff, that is so cool. What was it about doing that appealed to you guys?
Well, just the fact that you can do short runs. We weren't the first ones to do it. Actually, our friends in Honey Radar have been doing it for a while, but it was really when the 1984 draft and Joey Beach both did theirs recently. They were like, well, hey, we could steal that idea too. So, I mean, that's basically what it was. It was Joe and Joey who inspired us to do that. And we actually went to the same place, Funky Frankenstein in Florida, that the 1984 draft used for the two singles they did. So, so I just think it's really cool. Like I said, I envisioned those 3 EPs as like vinyl 7 inches anyway. So it's really cool that we got the opportunity to do that, and that enough people got behind us to support it. That we could do it, and it's a small run, but for people who want to have a physical copy, I mean, it's kind of a cool thing. So I'm pretty excited about it, and and so that's why we decided to do the same thing with the full length. So that's pretty cool. I guess it's a way of doing stuff. Like we mentioned, it might have been off air that we did Attic Harvest, and that was our first vinyl that we'd done after all these many releases. We've done cassettes, CDs, stuff that's strictly digital. But having vinyl is, a lot of bands' dream, and I've been lucky enough to be on a lot of vinyl over the years, just because I've been with groups that have been pretty productive, and a lot of it was at the time where that was what you did. But it's great to see that stuff is cycling back around, and we're getting more chances to do that. Like I said, we have a split 7-inch coming out with this group, Honey Radar, from Philadelphia, and they're friends of ours. Jason I've known since the 90s. He's a Richmond, Indiana kid, but he's